everybody. Welcome to another awesome Aloha Friday. You know what's cool about Aloha Fridays? The best Aloha Fridays is when you live in Hawaii, because that's where it all originated from. And we do feel the Aloha on Fridays here in Hawaii. And even more reason to feel that way. Adrian, who we got on today's show?
So our guest today is a highly experienced loan officer, mortgage banker, and broker in Hawaii. She grew up in Kailua and is a graduate of Iolani. She went to the University of San Francisco, where she studied financial economics in undergraduate and graduate school.
She also worked in banking in the mainland until coming back to Hawaii and started Pacific Rim Mortgage. Please welcome our guest, the mortgage genius, Jodie Tanga. Welcome to me.
Hello.
Well, I know there's a little fun fact about Jodie and her company. So when you came back and you launched your company, tell us a little bit about your relatives that you work with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so now, I work with my brother, who comes from a CPA, accounting, Ernst & Young background. He joined on about 5 years in, and then Casey, our sister, her background is in customer service. She was the director of recreation over at the Four Seasons on the Big Island, and she was working up her ranks in that field. She came on about a couple years after Derek. And then we have Lisa, who is Derek's wife. She also comes from the hotel customer service industry. And she does a lot of customer service stuff now for us. But that's like the family component. I've had my niece, who now is doing Homeland Security, which was truly her like ultimate goal. But she came and worked with us for a bit, and then we have our core team, who's not actually family, but most of our core team has been with us for over 5 years.
So you treat them like family. They're not actual related by blood, but they're your family anyway. Because that's how
I love how you guys have like the balance of, like the number crunchers and the finance, along with the customer service side of things. It's like a really nice dynamic that you guys have formed.
It's a three-headed monster, I call it. And even though our team is much bigger than that, it's the head of the team is definitely a three-headed monster. And it's just such a good balance of, I'm creative and I like to try, I think I'm a little bit more like Adrian in that, like, we like to try new things and like, we're like, no, this, that. And then, Derek is more like, well, let's look at the metrics. Like, is it going to work? And then, so he's like the empire protector. And then there's Casey, who's like the, really like street smart, like communication, great with people, middleman that can sometimes when Derek and I disagree, she can be like, well, this is what I think. And she really weighs in. And then there's Lisa. And she brings a lot to the table too, when it comes to like that consumer opinion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's get into it. The question that's on the top of every buyer's mind right now is that interest rates being where they are at today, is now a good time to be. The question to us would be to Adrian and myself as realtors they're going to ask us, is now a good time to buy? The question to you on the lending side is now a good time to get a mortgage. How would you respond to that?
So, I mean, there's no cookie cutter answer to that. And a lot of our strengths as a small intact brokerage is really understanding the nuts and bolts of like, what is your why? Like, why are you considering buying? Why is buying a goal? What is it? It's I really want to get my foot in the door. I really want to start building some equity and growing some wealth. My parents have told me that I need to own property as an investment. And so is it that? Is it, our landlord told us that she's selling at the end of this month. So I have 45 days in order to find somewhere else to live. So now seems like a good segue to be like, if we can buy, we should buy because we need shelter over our head, right? And then we have a lot of people coming to Hawaii, which are making that decision of like renting versus buying. And so I guess my answer is you really have to work within your lending team and your real estate realtor to figure out why and what are your goals so that we can craft the best timeline for you.
Yeah.
So Jodie, when you're sitting down with your clients and you're talking about the numbers of the investment, or maybe it's the purchase because they're going to be living in the home, what are those things or what are those questions that you're asking them to dig a little deeper on to really understand their why?
I ask them how much they save on a monthly basis. I ask them how much they have to their name. Like, how long have you been saving for? Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'm, 35. I've been working since I was 22. I've been trying to save this whole time, right? Type of thing. I ask them where else they diversify their monies. Like, so if you are a W-2 employee, how much do you have going towards your 401k? Do you have stocks? Do you have CDs? What do you think about stocks? It's interesting because I just talked with a very interesting investor, and he was saying stocks are like a hard no for me. He was just like, I
He's
would
like a
never
real
buy
estate investor.
it was to me, I was so surprised because I assumed, you have a couple of Airbnbs on the mainland, you have your one house in Hawaii, your main hub in California. And
Yeah.
I'm like, tell me more about where the rest of your money is. And he's like,
This is it.
in property. Like, that's where my money is,
He's all in the real estate world.
And he is completely all out of stocks. Like, no one could convince him to invest in stocks. Like, he for whatever reason, based on his upbringing, his financial advisors, whatever it may be, something must have happened in terms of like, well, my grandma lost it all or something, where he's like, I'm not doing stocks, right? So, but I do want to understand, where are you pointing your money and how is that money growing? Because if the goal is to grow your money, let's figure out the best way to do that. And we all know this is why we're in the industry. This is most of the time what got us into the industry is we want to own property.
Yeah.
We want to own that physical asset that is going to continue to appreciate over time. And so I try to understand, wow, how does that make you feel if, effectively you've been saving for the past 15 years and you've got about 20K to work with? It's not to make them feel bad. It's to make them understand how to make your money work for you.
Well, one of the things I want you to cover, it's we call it the B word. Nobody likes it. Everybody dreads doing it. It's like pulling teeth to get people to do it. But I like how you go over it with these people, the B word, and you make them do it because it's important. Let's talk about budgeting.
Yeah, I have come to, and again, I think I'm a little bit more like Adrian in our historical budgeting practices.
Yeah.
But I have, since I've been doing this, I have grown to love the budget. Like, it's almost we have a family chat, and in that we like challenge each other on how much we spent on food and how much we've spent on other expenses, just to see where, how much we can cut. And it's really helped my parents to be aware, because my parents were just like, well, we have 5 bulldogs and they need their joint medicine, and they need their like in between the ruffles, wipes, and all this kind of crazy stuff, right? That it's easy to spend money on. Yeah. So I call it, financial hack or a micro budget, which is when you're after you do your 60 or 90-day review of where all your money is going, and it's tedious, and I even say, like, let's do it together. Like, let's jump on a Zoom and have your credit card statements and your checking account statement ready for me, and we'll categorize it onto the Excel sheet. And then you're going to be like, holy crap, I had no idea I was spending that much money there, right?
Yeah.
And then once we categorize it, we're going to kind of circle the things that there's generally like easily $500, easily. Some people as much as $4,000, that it's like,
Wow.
I can for sure cut this out. Like, that's easy, that's easy, that's easy. And then you start to really understand what you're spending your money on. And what I want the money to be spent on are mindful expenditures.
Yeah.
This is our housing and our future appreciation. This is our future equity that we're going to allocate 4,000 to, or 3,500 or 5,000, whatever that budget number is. And then this is how much we're going to spend on food, and this is how much we're going to spend on all the other stuff. And so one of the things that it's easy to overlook is, like, you're like, well, I only have a car payment, and so my car expense is only $435 a month, right? But then it's like, what else is there aside from the $435 auto loan, right? What else is there?
Insurance,
registration.
Oh, yep.
So depending on the size of the car, right? Gas. So it's really factoring in. My parents thought that they only allocated $400 a month, when it turns out, because they only have one car loan, but they have two cars. So you take the two cars registration. Now all of a sudden that's $1,200, right? Divide that by 12. That's another $100 a month that we have to allocate towards the budget. Because even though it's going to be a bulk expense, like where you're like, okay, I paid the registration, it's still something that has to be amortized, or just, divided amongst the months in the year.
And then there's also the car repairs and speeding tickets if you are not such a cautious driver.
Well, the other thing too, a couple tips of things that you said. First of all, people pay attention to the weight of your car, because that's how your registration amount is determined, is by the car weight, gross vehicle weight. The other thing too is, I don't think that, you said something earlier about that guy is all in real estate, no stocks at all. There's a book called The Psychology of Money, and it talks about how you were raised is how you invest today. What was in your environment, and we make 90% of our decisions based on 2% of information we know, which is kind of weird for that kind of important decision-making process. And the thing is that when you're first starting off, you can't go buy a house, but could you put $25 away into a mutual fund? Sure. So, I would say run those things in parallel. And in fact, you know what? Here's an easy go-to. Jodie, do you have an Acorn account?
I don't, but I was just thinking about doing a video on that.
You should get one, because Adrian and I, we talked about it with the team, and we challenged everybody to start up on it. And then Adrian started before me. What you got in your Acorn account, Adrian?
I think I'm at like close to 10,000 now.
Yeah,
and then a couple of years ago.
She told me, I got really pissed off and competitive, so I started my Acorn account. And you know what it does? It makes investing automatic and fun, because it does roundups. It's
gamify it. Just like how Jodie gamifies her budgeting with all of her siblings and her team.
Yeah, fast forward today, man, I got like $13,000 in there. Could that help somebody buy a home? Maybe first-time home buyer, if they got $13,000 in their Acorn account?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money.
Yeah. Let's talk about, okay, so tap on the first-time home buyer. What would be your number one advice for a first-time home buyer? Or number one or two, three things?
My number one advice to a first-time home buyer, look at that phone. My number one advice to a first-time home buyer would be understanding the house hack. Like, so let's back into a budget. Let's figure out what you can spend monthly, and then I will tell you the price point, and then you go find a property that is going to match that price point, versus coming to me and saying, these are the houses I like. Oh, I can't afford that. Okay, never mind then. I guess I'm going to have to go save. Because then again, that takes me back to, well, what have you saved so far in the past 10 years? Yeah. And if it is something really going to change. And I don't know if it is. And I'm just trying to we want to get started somewhere now. So if it means that you have to sacrifice in what you end up buying and buy something that's not, I really wanted 2 parking spots. I really wanted 2 bathrooms instead of 1 bathroom. I get it. I mean, I want 2 bathrooms too, but maybe let's get our foot in the door, get the home ownership under your belt, get used to making a mortgage payment, get calibrated at this new lifestyle, and then ride the wave. So then you can move on to your next property in the future, in the coming years.
Yeah.
But if you never started at this property, fast forward 5 years, you blink 5 years, and all of a sudden, you still don't own and you still don't have a huge down payment. You're just like, I wish I would have bought 5 years ago.
Yes.
Adrian, you paid down your landlord's mortgage. You've been helping pay the landlords.
Yeah, everybody's making a mortgage payment, making somebody else's or your own. Adrian, you had a question?
Oh, I wanted Jodie to just explain the difference between like a bank loan officer or like lender versus a broker, because it's confusing to people that are not within the industry.
Yeah, those titles. What do those titles mean?
And what's the difference?
Yeah, so there's so much to say there, but on just as for a consumer, if you work for a bank and you're a loan officer for a bank, there isn't additional testing that you have to take, because I don't know why someone decided that, but someone decided if you work for a bank and if you're good enough to get hired at a bank, you don't have to pass the test that everyone else has to pass.
That's the regulations.
It's crazy. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's like everyone should have to pass the test, in my opinion. That would be like being a realtor and saying like, well, you don't have to pass the test, the real estate test, as long as you work for XYZ, So on the one hand, a mortgage banker or a loan officer that works for a bank is employed by the bank. They work for the bank. They answer to management. They push the products that they're supposed to push. They have access to the products that the bank has access to. As a mortgage broker, we have access to hundreds of wholesale lenders. Now, do we work with 100 of them? No. We have our favorites and we have the leaders, but we work with all the wholesale lenders, and each wholesale lender might have a different niche. So they might specialize in VA loans. They might specialize in people with lower credit scores. They might specialize in first-time home buyers. They might specialize in investors. And I'm not going to take my VA buyer to the wholesale lender that specializes in investors. I'm taking my VA buyer to the wholesale lender that specializes in VA loans. And so we're employed effectively by the buyer. Our job is to get the best interest rate, the lowest costs, and find the best products for our buyer, even if it means, having to vet out 5 or 6 or 10 different lenders to make sure that we're giving the best product to our buyer. That's why I like being a broker, because I can look you in the eye, because we did do the banker route for a couple of years when compliance got crazy. And I knew that I was giving someone a rate that wasn't the best rate, and that I didn't love that. I mean, there was a reason why it became really hard to be a broker after the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau became born. They basically made it super difficult to be a small mortgage broker. They wanted everyone to go work for a big bank. And so we didn't go work for a big bank, but we did convert to that middle hybrid of being a mortgage banker. And we made a little bit more money, and our rates were a little bit higher. And I wanted to go back to being a broker and being able to look someone in the eye and saying, like, I'm getting you the best rate possible, period. And that's what I love about being a broker. The other thing is what one of my colleagues gave me this little analogy. He said, a mortgage broker is like a lion in the wild, like a lion that goes out and gets its prey and, and works for it. Yes. It keeps its sustainability on its own versus like, and this is not my analogy, this was given to me, but versus like a mortgage banker or a bank loan officer that's more of like a lion in the zoo. So similar, same animal, but they get fed.
Different
And
different environments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to be sharp. We have to know our stuff. We have to be available on the weekends. We have to take a phone call at night. I mean, and that's because that's when buyers have questions. And I want to be able to answer my buyers' questions.
That reminds me, and we're kind of wrapping it up, but it's can go on for another 5 minutes just talking about using a mainland lender versus a local lender. But I think it's just exactly what you just said, is that, you know, a lot of people are stuck to their credit union, some national credit union, no names mentioned, USAA, and it's a 1-800 number, and whoever's next up is helping you. You don't get a loan officer, stuff like that. And I'll tell you, we've had deals blow up. We've had deals blow up because the buyer was using a mainland lender. And you need to be able to pick up the phone and talk to somebody, hopefully the specific person you've been working with at the beginning, to see how we can figure it out or get a workaround or come up with a solution. Adrian and I personally, we will vouch. We have been on the phone on the weekends, evenings with Jodie, trying to unravel something to continue to move forward. And you know what? We've been out there. You know what we was doing? We was out there hunting like lions, just like you, in the wild.
That's right. And
not sitting in the zoo waiting for the zoo to open up on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Jodie, thanks.
Yes. Happy Aloha Friday.
Happy Aloha Friday. And I know we'll have you guys on here again because you're the mortgage genius.
That's right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.